Let's talk about drawing a Darth Maul portrait in vector art. Why not? Because it's cool. All right, let's see. So what I've got here is a drawing that I made on my iPad. I do a lot of my sketching and drawing using Procreate on my iPad, and that's what I did here. I have another video where I kind of go through a quick draw of this session. And now what I'm going to do is take this drawing and convert it into a vector drawing. And I'm old school, so when I do portraits like this, I use the pen tool. Other folks, they like using maybe the blob brush or shape tools, shaper tool, whatever. But for me, I'm old school pen tool, and I don't think I can change. I've always, thought maybe I can loosen up a little bit, but I just can't. I'm hardwired for the pen tool. So what I do is I set up my layers in a way that I can do my portrait drawing. So in this case, in my layers, I have a background layer that has this sketch and then a photo reference that I found that shows me a lot of the detail on Darth Maul's face. And essentially, I build my drawing as I go. So if I have a new layer, what I'll do is set up that second layer above the photo layer. I'll make sure that my sketch layer is locked, and I'll zoom in and start going to work. Now, as I look at the sketch and I start planning how I'm going to put different pieces together, I generally start with the eyes. For me, the eyes are the most important thing to draw. And so that really locks in your portrait. And so in this case, I made his drawing symmetrical. And my goal is to maybe do one part and then flip it for the other. I'm not going to exactly mirror it, but I'm going to set it up in a way that I can reuse pieces as I go. So what I'm talking about is first, I'll set up my pen tool with an outline color that's kind of bright and easy to see. So in this case, just red. And I'm going to go in and start trying to draw his eye, right? The eye shape. I'm going to just kind of create that outline and put it in place. In this case, he's got that large black tattoo over his eye, so I'm going to kind of draw that as well. And as I go along, as I'm drawing, I have my left hand on my keyboard pressing a few important keys. So when you have the pen tool selected, if you press Option or Alt if you're on a PC, you get the Convert Anchor tool, which is really good for moving handlebars and changing their direction. Also, if you press Command, you get the direct selection arrow, which you can use to reposition your lines as you go. And when you let go, you return to the pen tool. In this case, I need to change direction, so I'm going to tap that anchor point and curve back and try to make that complete line and close the loop. So here's what I've got. I've got that large patch and then the eye. So then I'm going to go ahead and flip that so you see the solid red that I drew. This is the shape that I drew. And a lot of times what I'll do is now go in and kind of tune it up. And this is again where I press those keyboard shortcuts. If I go to an anchor point and then I press Option, that gives me the handlebar that I can adjust and realign as needed. Press Command, I can move that anchor point. So you rarely get it just right the way you want it in the beginning. So you always go in and tune it up. Now, my sketch is pretty loose, so I'm not going to follow it exactly. I'm going to let myself adapt as I go here to kind of create the shape. In some cases, like here where his eye and his brow kind of furrow and pinch, I want it to go to kind of a point. But then along the edge, along the bridge of his nose, I want it to round a little bit. So I'm constantly going back and forth between these little buttons on my keyboard and kind of swapping and moving things around. Good. Now, I also drew that inner eye socket. So I need to put this large patch behind that because I drew it second, which meant it was above. So now I need to send it behind. And then I need to go find that line. There it is. Okay. Selected it. And this one, I'm just going to give it a white fill. so you can kind of see how it's looking. Again, I'm gonna manipulate it a little bit. And when thinking about angry eyes, the lines kind of aim downward, and then the cheek kind of curves up a little bit to means he's kind of, scrunching his cheeks a little bit. All right. Now I'm going to punch a hole. I'm going to put this white shape through the red shape so that I can see into the drawing underneath. Best, easiest way to do that might be Pathfinder, but also it's Shape Builder. So I'll grab that Shape Builder tool, come over here. I got to press Option so that I remove a shape. Click that little white space, and now it's gone. Now I can see through it. I'm going to realign this just a little bit more. All right, now that eye patch is in its place. I'm going to switch to my ellipse tool so I can create that center circle for his eye. I want to make it kind of a thin outline stroke. I noticed in my sketch, I felt like his eyes are a little too close together. So I am going to push them out a little bit, widen the stance. Sometimes what I'll do to make the lines a little more interesting is I'll click on the stroke and I'll adjust the profile. So that line is a solid thickness. If I click on the profile and I switch to maybe one of the irregular ones, that creates an interesting, unique line shape, which if you notice there, it has kind of thick and thin quality, which I really like. Next, I just need to put his pupil in the middle. Oh, that's weird with that thick and thin line. But I'll flip it so that I get that pupil right dead center. And I think it's even a little bit more menacing to have that pupil in the center and not touching the outer iris. That tends to make more crazy eyes. And the last little detail I'll add is a highlight. So I'll draw a little triangular shape. And I'll give it kind of a white center. This is a way to create, that specular highlight that appears on an eye. If you ever look at eyes close up, a lot of times what you see is the reflection of something bright in the room or the world around that person. And so you mimic that with these little white spots. Of course, anime eyes, they go a little crazy. They do extra little dots. They have all these little bright spots, which make little dreamy eyes. In this case, obviously, that's too much. I can get away with a cool little triangle. So if I zoom out a little bit, kind of see how this eye is shaping up. And if I go to my layers, I'll turn off the photo so you can kind of see how it's looking. So this is the start. And what I'll do here is I'll take this and I'll make a copy. The quickest way to make a copy is to select something, drag it sideways. While dragging it sideways, press Option, then let go of your mouse. That makes a duplicate. Next, I'll go over to the rotate tool, but what I'm after is reflect. So I'll switch to reflect, double click it. It's reflected. Now I'm just using that same copy of that eye, but because it's identical, I will now adjust it. For example, that reflection needs to go back to the other side. If there's a light source coming, it's going to come from one direction. So that means this triangle should also be facing the other direction, the same direction as the reflection on the other eye. It wouldn't be on opposite sides, if that makes sense. All right, kind of get that in position. I'll turn the drawing back on, and so you can kind of see, it's a little bit off. I'll adjust it a little bit. And this is where, to make it a little bit different, I'll go in and make some minor adjustments to the lines so that both halves aren't identical. Your mind recognizes things that are perfectly symmetrical. And in this case, to make it a little bit more unique, each eye has to be slightly different just slightly in this case. And I'll turn off the drawing. You can kind of see how it's starting to come together. There are a lot of little detail lines that will be added to this. In fact, I've already completed a bunch of it, so I'm going to show you how it's looking now. You'll see how, in this case, I added other things, little creases and lines, and I've added his nose and even his mouth. And these are all adjustments that I've made to my drawing as I go. And as I'm working on his face, I noticed my original drawing, I think, was a little bit too compressed. And so I repositioned his mouth, extended his nose a little bit versus what I had on the drawing. And so I think that makes him look a little bit more like his real face. And this is how I continue to work. I'll just keep going slowly but surely, adding pieces and tracing my drawing, looking at the reference, looking for information. So next, I would approach doing his cheek and his face, and I could also do a similar thing where, because again, it's symmetrical, I'd probably draw one half and then flip it and then adjust it and make it more unique for the other side of his face. But you can see how it's starting to come together. So that's my basic technique, you guys. Um, Adding to that, I'm going to add some color. In this case, my goal is to make a really stark two-color image. Obviously, red and black, and then the white of the paper showing through. I think that will be a really awesome print. And so that's my goal. But I really want to have it on a dark background too. So eventually it might just be his face appearing out of the black with faint detail lines and then that bold red. And wherever possible, maybe just in the eyes, you'll see that white or on his mouth that really makes the rest of it pop. And so that's going to be my goal for finishing up that Darth Maul portrait. And those are the basics of what I do. I start out again with my sketch to help me define what my character is going to look like. And then I just kind of tweak and slowly mold that vector drawing as I go. That actually is one of my favorite things about vector art is the ability to get it down first, get the rough drawing down, and then go in and tweak it and fiddle with it. Um, it's not possible to do that in Procreate or Photoshop or even on a piece of paper. You have to redraw everything you want to fix. I love the fact that Illustrator gives me the freedom to modify and manipulate and mold. It feels a little bit like sculpting. That's what I'm trying to do is just sculpt the lines and get them right where I want them. And they don't move on me. So I can go in and fix them and repair them, replace them, whatever it takes. And vector art is very forgiving in that way. So it's kind of like you have the precision of the pen tool, which is so perfect and can be a little bit difficult to manage. On the flip side, you have the freedom and flexibility to pause and to take a break, come back to it, and fix it later. And you don't have to worry about anything being permanent. So that's one of my favorite things about vector art. All right, thanks for drawing with me. If you'd like to learn more, check one of my links. I do have classes where I teach how to use Illustrator, and you can help improve your vector art. All right, see you around.